Pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Don't do that.
The Commissioner's Office is requesting the Board approve and execute the minutes for the meeting of April or March 8th, 2016.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool?
Aye.
I know that he's coming, and he asked if we could table it until he comes through the door. He should be here in five minutes or so. He said the rain and traffic. But when I talked to him, he was on Auburn he was by Newberry School.
Oh.
So, how long does it take to get from here? When I talked to him,
Newberry School?
Let's do 3:15.
I probably talked to him 10 minutes ago.
Yes, I will report on the item that I approved on March 14th, which was authorized by Resolution 16-005, pursuant to ORC 305.30. This was simply a service contract agreement for water resources with Platform Cement Incorporated.
Oh, okay, hi.
Before without any impact?
Okay. Yes, and you know, they want us to know about it. It's great. County Home is requesting the board increase the current posting from 1 to 2 positions for part-time attendant number 1504-1 third shift. These positions will remain posted until filled.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool? Aye.
Good morning, Jerry.
Morning, Jerry.
Not used to being up this quick in the session.
We are not wasting time today.
I know.
There's some important voting going on.
Usually down around 23 or 24.
Oh, you're up at the front of the list.
And we want to get you out on the job earlier.
The first item here is just an annual report that we have to make to the USDA for the loans that we have with them, Parkman, I think Thompson, and one other project, I'm not sure if it was Chagrin Falls Park from years and years ago. So this is just outlining who the governing authorities are in the county for the annual report.
I'm just asking practice.
The Department of Water Resources is requesting the board approve and authorize the president of the board to execute the certified list of governing body and contact persons regarding the facility and financial information for the USDA annual reporting requirements.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool?
Aye.
The next item is our Russell Park wastewater plant. The bids came in, we only received one bid and it was over the 10% over the engineer's estimate. The numbers don't make sense to me based on other projects we've recently done, so we're reevaluating the whole project before we go back out to bid. It came in about 2.2 million. Really, based on our previous projects, it should have been about a $1.5 million project. So we're trying to figure out where this extra $700,000 is at. I'm working on calling the contractors with full plans to find out if there's something in there that we're not seeing from our side that's causing them to raise their prices, or if it's just because it's been a while since we've done a project like this, that the prices have changed, or there's specifically something that's, as that is more, the 2.2 million is more than we paid 5 years ago to completely rebuild infirmary, so it doesn't make any sense to me on the numbers, so we're reevaluating.
But there was only one contractor?
There was only one contractor who bid. We had 5 contractors pull plans, but only one submitted plan. Or submitted a bid.
Something
We'll be
else.
back at some point with we're not ready to go back out and rebid if the price, the price doesn't make any sense to us.
The Department of Water Resources is requesting the board reject all bids for the Russell Park wastewater treatment plant upgrades project as all bids received were in excess of the engineer's estimate.
I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier? Commissioner Claypool?
And while you're here, just for information for you two commissioners, I got a call from a gal last week in Auburn who was upset about the fact that we were gonna be tying in Troy and the Great Lakes Cheese Factory and so forth. Jerry was nice enough to work with me. We talked about what that situation was. She was under the assumption that they were gonna be taking capacity, that activity would take capacity out of the sewer treatment plant. And Jerry assured me that they were adding capacity to meet this need. So if you guys get a call or anybody's upset about that, I think they can get a hold of Jerry, but it looks like there shouldn't be any issue. People have gotten what they paid for, and the additional capacity being added to meet the upgrade in terms of need and all that kind of stuff. I'm just saying this as an awareness thing, so in case you get any phone calls from anybody. Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you. Thanks, Gary. Have a good day. You too.
Commissioner's Office is requesting the board approve and authorize the president and the board to execute the Great Geauga County Fair contract for the period September 1st, 2016 through September 5th, 2016. There is no cost to us, but we still have to sign the contract for the use of the building.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool?
All right. Wrong list.
No.
Agenda.
They're pretty much the same, just some slight tweaks.
Aye.
Christie. Aye. Yeah, we can go back to item 2. Morning, Heidi. Hi, Heidi.
On the financials today include a revenue certifications for the Sheriff's 800 Communications Permanent Improvement Fund and the Court Technology Fund. Those are for supplemental funding that was approved by the board in February. An appropriation transfer from the contingency account for salary and benefits for the prosecutor's office. A supplemental appropriation for the Sheriff's Law Enforcement Block Grant for equipment purchase. Cash transfer for a portion of 2016 funding for Court Technology. Travel request for the Department of Job and Family Services. Payment to City Blueprint of Toledo for the purchase of survey equipment and software for the engineer's office in the amount of $42,601.66. Payment to Vermeer Sales and Service for the purchase of the SC60TX stump cutter for the engineer's department in the amount of $44,265.06. And a payment to Nick Phillips Plumbing and Heating for the installation of a replacement boiler at 470 Center Street for the maintenance department in the amount of $23,695.
I have a bit, or some questions on one item that are on this financial report, so I'm gonna ask Jim Blaze to come up, because he's gonna be able to speak to this. We have an item on here that adds budget for a criminal investigator. Thanks, Jim, I appreciate you coming over. Criminal investigator for internet crimes. This was somewhat of a surprise to me. Maybe it's because I wasn't paying attention. I thought we were going to have more conversation over this before we got this to the stage where we're going to be approving the budget increase. And so I have some questions on this coming from the fact that sometimes we don't ask enough questions. I mean, I'm all for law enforcement. I vote for law enforcement funding all the time. But in this particular situation, based on the request, I'm just not sure if we've asked enough questions. And so I'm going to ask a couple more questions, if you don't mind. I understand that, and by the way, for the public to understand, this is a substantial amount of money. We're going to be paying a guy $63,000 the remainder of this year, $90,000 next year. That amounts to about $450,000 for 5 years, close to $1 million for 10 years. So this sort of funding, we would have an expectation that we would be measuring results. First of all, understanding the problem, designing a solution around the problem, and then measuring the results to make sure that we're getting the services that we think we're paying for. That's what the citizens elected me to ask questions about, to make sure that we've got accountable government. And so that's the reason I'm asking these questions. It's not to put you on the spot, and I apologize.
Well, it is, but I'm happy to answer your questions. I'm a little surprised that you're surprised. Since I first talked to you about it 4 weeks ago, you told me you were in favor of it. Then I sat in your office for over an hour and answered many questions and went over the proposal in detail with you. So for you to sit here and say you're surprised, frankly, I'm a little surprised. And when you start throwing around figures like $1 million over 10 years, this is a budget request for the remainder of 2016.
Right.
As you know, I rarely make budget requests, and I've been more conservative in my budget than probably any other department or elected official in the county. I saw a need here. I presented that plan to the commissioners, presented it to you, Skip, and I think that, again, I'm happy to sit here in session and answer any questions you have. But for you to throw around those numbers, I think is a little disingenuous. You don't know what my budget request is going to be in 2017. You don't know if I'll make cuts. I do plan to make cuts. So for you to throw these numbers around, I'm a little surprised. The issue here today is the budget request for the remainder of the year, which is somebody who's going to investigate internet crimes against children, somebody who's going to do electronic investigations, all the frauds being committed against the elderly in our county. There's a real need. We do not have this capability in any law enforcement agency in our county currently. All the other counties around us do have this capability. And all I'm asking for is about $20,000 more than you're going to give the engineer for a stump grinder. And that money is going to be used to protect the public.
Well, and again, I appreciate you coming up here. When you brought this up to me initially, the concept sounded good, but as is often the case, we go through a decision process which helps us to better understand what we're going to be actually accomplishing. And this happens to be an area that I have some expertise in, coming out of the internet business or the computer business and so forth. And so, and you and I did talk at length, but as you know, when you left my office, I still had some, I don't want to say concerns, I had some questions, and this is just about answering questions. I mean, I think this is a huge issue. I'm not sure that we're not boiling the ocean here. That's my concern. Can we really accomplish anything? A lot of what we're talking about, the internet crime, and for the sake of people that are listening, it's fraud, it's when kids get online and they're being promoted by adults to meet them in a parked car someplace, or whatever the case happens to be. Much of that is best solved through parents and responsible parenting, and not necessarily government. I mean, as I read your letter, we talk about a growing problem. How big is that problem? I don't know how big that problem is, and I don't know that we can solve the problem with one guy. And you're absolutely right, by the way, and I would applaud you. I've always been a big supporter of yours and your office, because you are a very conservative guy, conservatively manage your budget. And I don't know what the future is. What I do know is if we add a resource, this resource, at $90,000, that resource is likely to get a pay increase at some point in time. Their pay check next year, unless we reduce your budget, is $90,000. If you multiply that out over a period of time, the math is pretty simple and straightforward. And so then the question gets to be, given that amount of money that we are investing, is it really going to accomplish what we're hoping that it's going to accomplish? Oftentimes, we vote to do, or we approve dollar amounts to accomplish certain things, but we never double back to say, did we accomplish what we thought we were going to accomplish? And I'll reflect back on the heroin initiative. We put a lot of money into the heroin initiative, and I know that we talk around the fact that it's accomplished a lot of good things, but we've never gone back and asked the question, what did it accomplish? We're paying another $300,000 or $400,000 a year to accomplish something. What is it we're accomplishing? Government's really good at throwing money. The drug war is a good example of that, I think, and then never really holding ourselves accountable to determine whether or not we've accomplished what we hope to accomplish with the money. And if we're not, then we ought to be putting it someplace else. So the stump grinder, thank you for bringing that up. We can see every day that that's what the impact of that is. I mean, the county engineer has a job to do, and we can see the benefit and the cost reward for that kind of a situation. And I just don't, help me to understand well, I think, my gut tells me this is a good, my gut tells me this is a good situation. I just don't know the reality. I mean, Cleveland has a program. If we ask them, what have they accomplished in this program? Are they boiling in the ocean? Have they accomplished anything for these programs? I just don't know. I'm asking you to help me understand how this is a good investment of tax dollars.
Well, I mean, there's two separate conversations. I mean, if you want to talk about the impact that the heroin initiatives had, which I know Commissioner Spitaleri led the charge on with that money, then, you know, the sheriff and I have always been available, and I'm sure the judges would too, come in and talk about it. You know, you're you know, feeling like you're bailing out the ocean, I sympathize with that, and, you know, especially with the drug problem, I feel like that too. I mean, I told the grand jury that you know, you're gonna feel like you're bailing out the ocean with a bucket here on these drug cases. So I get where you're coming from, but, you know, what, if you wanna talk about that, I mean, let's have a whole meeting on that, because I'm happy to come in and talk about how, you know, I used to watch drug deals happen, you know, out on the square while there's kids out at recess at Park Elementary, how, you know, the county auditor's down at Sheets and they're dealing heroin right in front of them in the middle of the day. That's not happening anymore, okay? Those resources were put in place, and, you know, are we gonna stop that? I mean, are people driving down to Euclid and Cleveland and getting drugs? Yeah, I mean, we can't control that. And, you know, the war on drugs or stopping the drug problem, I mean, it's a lot bigger than what we can do. I mean, we can't stop the drugs from coming from Mexico. That's a national problem and a huge problem, and that's where they're all coming from. And that's where the money should be invested, is stopping them coming into the country. But we're not gonna stop them from coming from Mexico. We're not gonna stop them from coming from California into Geauga County. You know, like that narcotics unit that was funded by the heroin initiative, I mean, they're the ones that had the biggest drug bust in the county history down in Newberry, you know, a quiet cul-de-sac with literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in illegal drugs that was set up by a Mexican drug cartel, a house in our county. You know, and that narcotics unit that was funded by the heroin money is the ones that got that, and the guy was sentenced to prison for 30 years. So, you know, results, I mean, you know, we can anecdotally go through specific examples, or we could look at numbers, or we could look at trends. I mean, with the heroin thing, I think that's a separate issue. With this issue, I mean, what are we talking about here? I can't show you performance on something that's a new concept for our county. It's not a new concept for everywhere else, because everybody already has this resource. We don't. We've been relying on VCI a lot for this. There's positives and negatives to that. The positive being it's at no cost to our taxpayers, in the sense that there's no direct cost to our county. Our state taxes pay that, obviously, but there's no direct cost to us. So that's a service that we can utilize. The problem with VCI, while their work is good, everybody's using them. There's for example, it was in the news, big financial investigation in Chardon. Normally we would use BCI for those. Chardon went to BCI and said, we need you to do this investigation. They said, we'll start it in 7 to 9 months. Start it. So, you know, they're I think overwhelmed at the state level. And again, this is a resource that, yes, will be in the prosecutor's office, but similar to what Geauga County does, where they have that resource out of their prosecutor's office, and they have a much larger team in their office. This is just going to be one person. That person will be available to sheriff, police departments, and help backfill. I mean, that's what my investigators do now. They self-generate some of their own cases, but they also help the other departments. I mean, you know, some of these Chester does not really have a full-time detective. Russell does not have a detective. South Russell does not have a detective. Chardon does not have a detective. Middlefield does not have a detective. Burton doesn't have a detective. So, you know, what we try to do is centralize those resources a little bit in the county, because, you know, Russell Township, although they've had a bad run lately, Russell Township generally doesn't need a full-time detective for their activity level. But when something happens there, like they had a significant homicide, you know, an arson, when those type of events happen there, they need to have resources available to them at the county level that can help them. And that's exactly what this is. That's the same type of thing.
Do we have any sense for the nature of this particular problem? I mean, this is a really tough problem, because it's not like this is Geauga based. People who are predators of kids may not even reside, they might be in Haiti, they might be in Cleveland, they might be wherever. Do we have a sense of the nature of the problem and how it impacts, how many people it impacts in Geauga County? Is it 1, 5, 1,000?
Well, that's just one facet of this position. I mean, the people luring children over, that's just one facet of this position. I mean, the proposals in front of you, I mean, there's many different facets to this. I mean, that's one, I can talk about that. I mean, there's other, the problem is, every crime, I mean, the old days, you know, a theft was a theft and people took money. Nobody has money, nobody has cash anymore. You know, so a lot of our crimes are happening through different types of frauds that are occurring electronically. And having somebody with expertise in that area is really critical in applying that to drug cases, theft cases, burglary cases, all these different cases. Everything's text messages now. Nobody communicates over the phone. I mean, we chuckle about the days of the wiretap. I mean, you know, you need a text tap now if you want to find out what people are up to. So, with the luring thing, you know, that is something where I think we've had several instances where I think that if we had the manpower and the expertise to further pursue leads in that area, we would have had some more success. And the problem is, here's what typically happens. Mom discovers that the 12 or 13-year-old girl's been communicating with somebody online, flips out, takes her phone, reports it to the police. You know, the police take a report. They try to look into it, but we don't really have the capability to pursue that to the end. And that's an area, Geauga County has that capability, and they do those investigations. That's something that I think we need to be doing. We've done a little bit of that. I have a part-time investigator that ran with one. There was a guy in Erie, Pennsylvania, that was soliciting three young girls here in Chardon, 9th graders. I actually put my part-time investigator on it. He spent about 150 hours on that case, just chasing that down. But the guy turned out to be a real person. He was trying to come to Chardon, meet up with these girls. He was a convicted sex offender in Pennsylvania. And we turned the case over to Pennsylvania, and he's in prison now. But that was just one case, and I dedicated my part-time investigator to just work on that, and it took him, that's all he did for literally like 2 months, you know, with his part-time hours. He wasn't able to work on any drug cases or anything else. I thought it was a worthwhile pursuit, but that's the exception, not the rule. We have not been able to really pursue those cases vigorously because we don't have people with the expertise and we don't have the bandwidth.
Where do you, I mean, we know because of communities around or governments around us who have these programs, what they're accomplishing, what they're not accomplishing, what the outcomes of that is. Have you talked to them at all and said, what I'm trying to get my head around is where is this going to go? Is this going to be one guy or is it going to be 15 guys in the future? That's an extreme.
I mean, you can't answer that because you don't know, Skip. I mean, not to fight.
No, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry.
I just, you know, my position is this, is that, you know, I came from, you know, the law enforcement world, and, you know, when I left Shaker, we already had this in place, and that was well over 10 years ago, and I look at what, you know, from my years at the sheriff's office, we had continuous, you know, needs for this type of service. People are constantly getting, you know, defrauded through the mail, defrauded online. The whole trend is electronics right now, and it's not going to slow down. The whole internet world is the direction that we're going to from in every aspect of it. And as far as, you know, measuring this, you know, it's like basically saying, you know, if we're going to go down that road, we could really look and say, okay, we're spending $10 million on the sheriff's budget, and just say what did they stop or what haven't, or what did they or what didn't they stop. At the end of the day, we have a huge need that you'll never really know what it stops. But I can tell you this, is that, you know, the whole sexual predation, the senior abuse, as far as these internet scams that are going on, it's just not something that, you know, on a law enforcement side of things that you could just assign Officer Smith right now to try to look into this. It's time consuming. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes into this, and really to do it right, you need somebody that's dedicated and that can build this into when you're talking about dollar savings, and what's it real, the value? The value is this, is we have residents that probably have been bilked out of millions of dollars that are probably never reported because of the fact that they don't know where to turn and they don't know that the option is available. And the reality is that, you know, I think that this is the first step that should have probably happened 15 years ago, that I applaud, you know, Prosecutor Flace for taking a position to actually bring this forward, because we need this, and we need this more than we need a whole lot of other things on the law enforcement side of it, because this is where the trend for the growth in crime is. And as far as, you know, if next week not next week, but let's say at the end of the year here, you know, he comes back and he says, no, this is what this is turning into, and we've done this, you know, and we've stopped all of this, we've stopped this, or we've gotten all these perverts off the street doing this, and we need one more guy. I'm gonna tell you right now, I will support it again because of the fact that this is unmeasurable. It's not something that's going to have results overnight, but I'm telling you, there's a huge need for it. There's too much of this stuff going on. And as far as going back to your statement about like having your parents handle, you know, that's a parenting issue, it's not a parenting issue because parents are not aware of all of the stuff that is going on day to day with their kids on their phones. These kids are living totally separate lives. They're living with their phone. They're not living with their families. And I'm just telling you that there is a whole lot of stuff that's out there that these kids, when these parents find out, it's too late. And I'm just telling you, we need to make a proactive approach, and this is the first step to doing that I think is going to be huge. And I think that I applaud the prosecutor for taking the position of doing this, and I think that it's, you know, I get the whole dollars and cents part of it, but we piss money away on stupid stuff all the time that has no impact on the safety and value to our kids and our families and our residents of this county. This here, I can tell you, I would sign my name proudly on this to say this will have an impact, because we'll finally have a resource in the county for other departments to be able to turn to be able to set up, you know, whether it be, you know, child, baiting or whatever it is. I mean, we need this bad. And I'm just telling you, as a law enforcement guy, we needed this a long time ago, and I'm just glad that he's bringing it up now, because this is huge for us to be able to have this service.
Well, let me extend this, because this is, and I appreciate this conversation. As Dave can attest to, I did not want to have this. I wanted to set this aside so I could have a private conversation with you, but that wasn't the way that it was. That wasn't the desire. So I appreciate you being willing to come here and answer this question. And especially with Ralph and his background here, I'm really trying to get my head around this. This type of crime is different from other types of crimes. If I've got a guy who breaks into my house to steal stuff, and he's a violent person, whatever, he's coming to my home to break in. I make a choice when I go out onto the internet and I click on the button that leads me to some fraud site. I make the choice to say I'm going to transfer my bank account to somebody. I mean, all of us have gotten robocalls. I get robocalls on a regular basis. Hey, this is Card Store, and I'm looking to save you money. I make the choice to push button 1 to give them my credit card number for them to defraud and steal my money. So this is a crime of choice to a large extent. Even with the kids, as bad as it sounds, I got 2 granddaughters who I am really concerned about, because they're, like you said, they are on their phone all the time, and they're in a world that exists beyond what I can comprehend. I'm dating myself here a little bit, but I talk to them about it, and they say, look, let me see what you're doing, because that stuff is dangerous. You cannot go there. I mean, Jim knows, because I reached out to him recently. I had an issue with one of my granddaughters, and I asked for his advice on this, and he gave me great advice. To some extent, that's a crime of choice.
But it's not, Skip. It's not a crime of choice. What is happening is, especially in the seniors, with the seniors, is that they are being tricked. It's a con game. It's a shell game that's going on. These are criminals. You got a criminal breaks into your house. These people are breaking into you through a con game. It's just like the guy that's knocking on the door talking to you, and then the 2 other guys go in the back door to rob your house. This is what they're doing. You have a choice to open that door, and these guys are going in. What these guys are doing is this is a con game. These are professionals, and they're professionals a whole lot better than the knucklehead that's breaking into your house to steal your TV. These are people that really know what they're doing. And as far as a lot of the seniors, they get scared, they get concerned, they utilize their family against them for ransom. They use, I'm telling you, these are extreme people. And if we don't have the plan in place to be able to combat this, there's a lot of people that are being swindled. And we, you know, I guess I feel like I can't, you know, convince you of this, but I'm just telling you, this isn't a crime of choice. This is stuff that people are being innocently taken advantage of because of the approach that people use to do this. Just like these kids, you know, this 12-year-old girl thinks that this 13-year-old boy likes her, and she's going to respond back. And say, thanks for thinking that I'm cute or whatever, and they get in this long drawn thing. Next thing you know, they basically, you know, well, let me meet you at such and such, and now this girl ends up getting kidnapped and found, you know, dead in a ditch somewhere. That's the stuff that we need to be proactive about, and that's what we need to be able to, you know, to go after. And if we don't have somebody focusing full-time and attention at this thing, I'm telling you, it's critical.
So what do you think we can do about this? We got 45,000 households in Geauga County. I would be willing to bet every one of those households have been targeted by somebody like this. Jim mentioned about 2 cases. So if you look at the order of magnitude we're dealing with, the numbers of, at some point in time we have to take personal responsibility for our lives.
Well,
but when you look at the numbers of people we're dealing with that are pursuing us, and for the vast majority of us, we see it for what it is, and I'm sensitive.
But
to the
excuse
elderly,
me,
but-
excuse me, I gotta enter in for a minute. Skip, on 2 or 3 occasions in this conversation, you've said, well, you know, I don't know, we have to find out, and I don't know. We could fill books with the stuff we don't know.
Mhm.
So it's not really productive for us to second guess and intervene with people whose job it is to know these things, to work on them. What will be the outcome? How many cases will we get? Well, no one knows that. But when you're going to implement something like this, there's a couple of factors. One, is it a problem? Okay. Is it going to become a bigger problem? Maybe. Is there someone available who's trained and has expertise in this on the market right now that we can go hire, that has the skill set that no one at this table has, maybe no one in the room has, and this person is available and have been trained? Well, you know, I don't want to be sitting here and saying, you know, we should have acted on that 6 months ago. The time to act on it is when, you know, the time to buy something is when it's for sale. If the man is there, which there is a man in mind, and I think continuing this conversation is a waste of the prosecutor's time and everybody else's. I think we need to either bring this to a vote, which if she reads it, I'll make the motion, or I'll read it and make the motion.
It's never a waste of time. When
Okay.
we're talking about the citizens' tax dollars.
You
to have a
waste-
discussion about how we're spending those tax dollars. And let me go back to your comment regarding our job sitting at this table is to ask questions, even of the experts, to make sure that the experts have thought through things.
But
clearly.
when is
I mean,
the-
we have Common Core, we have all kinds of nonsense that the experts have brought forward, which are not solving the problem. So.
Skip, when does the answer satisfy you? Because I'm of the opinion that no answer will satisfy you. You will talk to us and complain and filibuster on this issue until tomorrow afternoon.
Listen, I'm happy to answer any other questions you have. After you vote, a year from now, at budget time, I mean, I come before you every year, myself, I do my own budget, I come before you, I answer questions about the budget. I've always been very upfront with you guys.
I would question whether anybody has given you, to ask for $60-some thousand, if anybody has ever given you a more detailed proposal, I would like to see it. And I've talked to each of you individually. It's something new for us. It is not something new in law enforcement. It's something old in law enforcement. It's something that every other county and many other individual police departments like Shaker or Westlake, or, I mean, they're medium-sized municipal police departments have this resource, and our entire county does not have it. I saw an opportunity to bring this resource to our county, make it available to all the law enforcement agencies in the county. We're centralizing it so that there is a huge cost savings there, and we don't have, overlap among the different law enforcement agencies. I think that in the end, this is an incredibly low-cost way to have this resource available to everybody in our county. Incredibly low cost. So, again, I'm happy to, talk to any of you anytime about anything.
Well, I appreciate you coming and I appreciate this conversation and Ralph's input and so forth. This was not, it's just an effort for me to get my head around this, to make sure we're spending our taxpayer dollars reasonably, and this is a permanent liability. This is not a one-time expenditure. The stump grant is a one-time expenditure. This is a permanent liability. We're hiring a person that will be with us probably for a long time, and that person's gonna need technology, he's gonna need other things, he could grow, and so it's worth at least having this discussion to say, what are we doing here? I mean, why shouldn't we have posted this? If we have a problem, why shouldn't we have posted it? Why is this guy the right guy? Why is it that the prosecutor's office is the right place and not the sheriff's department? Those are reasonable questions to ask, and we ought to be, if we're not asking those kinds of questions.
With all due respect, with all due respect, with your function here is to provide me with the money or not provide me with the money. Posting jobs, hiring decisions, are none of your business.
That's your call. Christie, would you read item 2?
The Commissioner's Office is requesting the Board approve and execute the resolution number 16-032, itemizing the financials for the meeting of March 15th, 2016.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool?
Aye. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks.
Good luck, guys.
Sorry.
Have a good day.
Takes us to 8, doesn't it?
Yes.
Thought so. Yeah. She was a catch Jim bus. Well, I could explain number 8 for starters. This is simply the annual summer help request for permission to advertise. And it's pretty self-explanatory if you read the motion. And it's, a number of departments typically take advantage of this program to get things done that their own, staff has daily responsibilities for. So, cleaning, painting, maintenance, upgrades, type of thing. And this is not a action to hire anybody, this is just an action to advertise to start the process.
Commissioner's Office is requesting the Board grant permission to advertise for summer help number 0101 for the approximate period of May 1st, 2016, or the end of the school year, through September 30th, 2016, or at the start of school, whichever comes first, for a maximum of 21 weeks, 840 hours to be worked. This posting will remain posted until all positions are filled.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool?
And number 9 is the annual, well, we hope it's annual, it's never guaranteed, but, and we start out this budget year not knowing if we're gonna be able to have money in the budget to provide an increase. And based on the resources at the beginning of the year, the commissioners agreed to allow in the budget a 2% increase. And the way we're gonna do it this year, we do a step increase when we can afford it, a 2% increase really doesn't provide enough money in the overall budget to do a step increase and keep it within that 2% guideline. So the other thing we do is take the salary schedules that we have an employee schedule, we have an executive schedule, and simply increase all the grades and steps by 2%. That keeps the entry-level wages a little more competitive and provides everyone with a 2% raise as long as they have met the minimum qualifications on their employee evaluation. And this includes everyone in your hiring authority except Job and Family Services, which is on a different schedule and has a different pay scale, and the bargaining unit under Water Resources. Questions?
Commissioner's Office is requesting the board adjust the wage scale and compensation of non-bargaining unit employees under the hiring authority of the Board of Geauga County Commissioners, with the exception of the Department of Job and Family Services, effective with 2016 payroll number 7 by an approximate increase of 2%. Postings for current job openings will be revised to reflect this change.
Make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spudler?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool?
Aye.
Commissioner's Office is requesting the board move into executive session for the purpose of considering the employment of a public employee at the Department of Emergency Services.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner
Aye.
Spudler? Commissioner Claypool?
Aye.
Director Gail Wedge and Deputy Director Roger Peterson, the candidate.
Do we expect any action?
I don't know. I mean,
Could be action.
Could be action, yeah.
Let the record show we entered back into the meeting at
10:11.
March
10.
27th or April 10th, whichever he wants.
10-12. The Department of Emergency Services is requesting the board approve hiring Anthony McMillan as the Deputy Director of Planning to be effective April 11th, 2016, at a rate of $20.58 per hour, and there will be a 1-year probationary period.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spudler?
Aye.
Commissioner Claypool?
Aye. Welcome.
Thank you.
I move to adjourn.
Is that it? Is that the last?